Darrell
And
is sick.
he's sick, uh-huh,
We could call him
yeah.
and really make him sick.
You
Yeah.
might be watching. Hi, Darrell.
He could be.
Get
Yeah.
He has his priorities.
Okay. So it's time to call our meeting to order. And this is a strategic plan work session. And let's begin with roll call.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Hogeboom,
Here.
Levi,
Present?
Haverfield,
Here.
and Skog.
Here.
And Bruner is absent.
Yes. Thank you. So Shannon McGuire, go ahead and come forward, Shannon. And as you all know, I think you've met Shannon, we've all met Shannon. And thank you for the work that you're doing on our strategic planning initiative. And so Shannon's going to give us an update and lead us
Yes,
through the
thank
discussion.
you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. So excited to walk you through our one-page document that we've created. So before you, you have a narrative that walks you through each section of this strategy map. And what I will be doing is providing a high-level overview of that as well and asking you some questions for clarification and facilitating discussion as we move forward. So the premise of this strategy map draft is to get your approval so this can be taken out to the public beginning on Thursday with the comp plan committee's review. And from there, at the commencement of State of the City, Mayor will go out into public conversations to share this draft to receive public comment as well. So that's our charge today. So this plan, this strategy map is condensed from our directors' meetings that began in December. So we did a SWOT analysis with our directors. We then went into some visioning conversation. There were some values discussions that came out of that as well. And in January, we all met to walk through the vision, the mission, what are the focus areas that are very important, as well as the values. So what you have is a synthesized plan of that. So the very first sentence at the top is a representation of taking that vision and mission and making it more operationalized. So if we were to condense that down into a single statement as we discussed, that is memorable, punchy, if you will, representative of NAMPA, that can be the leading talking point. This is a draft of that. So that is a safe and healthy community where people prosper. That does not replace the vision or mission. It activates it. It operationalizes it into a smaller version that can carry forth in talking points. The vision and the mission remain the same per council request. This is the mission and vision statement that was adopted in 2015. That will carry forward, and that will also become operationalized. Below that, we have core values, which is a good focal point of our discussion today as well. These core values came out of our work session. Some of these came from our directors. There was a conversation this morning with directors to get more feedback on the values, and they recommended 3 of the 6 that are there, and I will give you an update on those opinions after. And finally, we have the focus areas. So you all discussed what are the primary areas of focus as we think through our strategic plan for NAMPA and the comprehensive plan, and that was safety, infrastructure, and economic opportunity. And those words were purposeful because, as you discussed at length, safety went beyond just public safety, safety of the city. Infrastructure was really important to highlight as well. And then economic opportunity versus just economic development, so that it was clear that this goes beyond one department. So I will pause there for any questions or comments on what has been presented.
Is that a nod that she nailed it? Are we good
You did good.
in condensing down the discussion?
Mayor Kling. So a safe and healthy community where people prosper, is that meant to take the place of NAMPA Proud? Is that what the intent, I mean, I know that's still out there. Is that going to be less of a focus? That's still a focus? What is the purpose?
You know, Randy, that's a really good question. And I guess we've not talked about NAMPA Proud itself, that tagline. I think that's something we could discuss. The purpose of this is something this is not intended to replace that tagline. The intent of this is something that conversationally, very easy just to roll off your tongue. So what are we doing? You know what, we want to have a safe and healthy community where the people prosper. It wasn't intended to replace that tagline. That said, I have heard some people comment that they would like us to possibly consider a different tagline. We could certainly do that. That would be an interesting discussion, and it's a really good question.
Yeah. Thanks.
I don't know if you have further thoughts.
Oh, you know, I'm not trying to advocate one or the other. I was just wondering if that was the intent. And if it's not the intent, that Nampa Proud still is a moniker that's there and available. It's short. This is a little bit longer, but again, it states what our desires are. And safety and health as far as through a lot of different avenues is important, I think, to our residents through the rec center and through the parks and everything else that's available. To be able to prosper, they need to be able to live and work here if possible. Not all choose to. So I think that's important as far as in that, if that's a tagline or whatever you would call it. But Nampa Proud it's obviously everybody's proud. Boise's proud, everybody's proud. So I think maybe a little bit more length to the intent of the statement makes sense.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, just as we discussed in the last meeting that we had here, Nampa Proud was not part of any elected officials' input except maybe the mayor, past mayor. So we never really had a buy-in on that, and it doesn't mean a lot when I read it. Nampa Proud, okay, I'm proud of Nampa. I like the tagline that we have here. There's a lot of ways to interpret that, but it should be that way.
So would the thought be possibly to replace that little icon Nampa Proud and possibly replace it with Nampa, a safe and healthy community where people prosper? And let that be our tagline? Just
From
a
a
thought.
from a branding standpoint, does that make sense from a branding standpoint?
Mayor and council, yes. It gives more meat. So to your point, Councilman, Nampa Proud, what does
Sure.
that really mean? I would look at this instead of a tagline as more of a purpose statement that ties it all together. So our purpose is to create a safe and healthy community where people prosper. Our vision of what that looks like, detailed here. So our mission and what we're doing to make that happen, the way it's described in more detail, you can see the mission, and then you will have your values that put forth what is important, what the meat of that is, and then here's our focus areas and where we're focused. The last layer that is not included are the strategic initiatives to say what is happening to make all of this come to life. So the cadence of that and the trickle down of that all starts with that purpose statement, if you will. So from a branding standpoint, much more clean, much more transparent in terms of who is Nampa, what does Nampa stand for, versus Nampa Proud, what does that mean? My unsolicited opinion.
Hoorah, yeah.
So, Mayor, if I could. So Shannon, have you heard any other catchy phrases that could stand for the city of Nampa that you've been throughout the United States? Something that's kind of unique. Do you have one in your head that you can?
Mayor and council, I do not. The thing that stands out to me in all of this is within your vision. And I think I mentioned this, the independent spirit and unique identity. Just saying that and owning that as a city is rare. There's usually fluff for cities, and it's usually pie in the sky and something that's not as traditional to who the city's identity is. I personally love where you all landed on safe and healthy community where people prosper, because what does safe mean? Safe is such a warm wraparound, but it's also making sure that the community at large feels comfortable as they walk out. Health is so broad. What does that mean, from walking to participating in programs and or kids and whatnot? But prosperity is such a deep word that I feel brings together the live, learn, work, play, worship, all of it coming together and being prosperous. So for Nampa, I feel the unique identity and independent spirit and the vision, that hits. It just does. And that the purpose statement of creating a safe and healthy community where people prosper.
Well, you know, excuse me, Mayor, I've been doing ribbon cuttings for the Hispanic community, and when I do, I usually say it in Spanish. And I didn't realize that I would get such a good response from this saying, and it surprised me, actually. I didn't know that it would take that effect. And it says, seguimos adelante, quedamos enfrente. What that means is we continue forward and we stay ahead. And I kind of realized that's what they want to hear, because it says so much in those 4 words. So I don't know whether we want to tag that, or I will continue to use it because it's such a good word for the business owners who have, and the Hispanic community. And so, and I haven't said it anywhere else, so I don't know what the response would be. But actually, it doesn't translate that well in English, so yeah, there's more of a internal understanding relationship when I say it that way. So I guess what I'm saying is if we can find one that fits both sides, would be just ideal. I happen to like Nampa Proud. I've always liked that, because the first 2 things I remember is I'm from Nampa and I'm proud of it. Simple, yeah. So I'm just waiting to see what fellow councilman and mayor are saying.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Victor, yeah, Nampa Proud's fine, it just doesn't mean a whole lot.
Right.
It's like, this should, a safe and healthy community where people prosper, I like that, although we should add no guarantees.
Where they prosper when you really work hard.
Mayor, Council, just chime in. I'm wondering if, I like what everyone said. I'm just wondering, you know, social media age, when you hashtag something, I notice like in Meridian, people say My Meridian. That's an easy hashtag, and some people. So hashtagging what we've condensed to is still, that's quite a long hashtag. There's no way you're going to hashtag that if you're trying to identify Nampa in some sort of positive light. So I'm just wondering, well, what I'm hearing is there's more meat and substance there, and at the same time, you don't want something so generic like Nampa Proud or My Meridian. But I know Meridian, at least when they say My Meridian, there's this sense of ownership over community. They're constantly trying to reemphasize that. So just the My Meridian in front of it is trying to communicate something bigger that's beyond that. I'm wondering if there might be something other than Nampa Proud that condenses what we're trying to say here that's hashtagable.
You know, what came to my mind as you were talking was, how about Nampa moving forward for a hashtag? Which kind of takes, it's a little longer than 1 word, but it takes what Victor has said. And I think, I'd have to ask Amy, I think the title for the state of the city is moving forward, right? That just occurred to me. But your continue forward and stay ahead, I mean, that moving
Yeah.
forward, we could do something, a hashtag. I mean, it could be, you know, I don't know, though, that you have to, I mean, hashtags are a little different, right, than what we're doing here, but we could certainly create a hashtag for our community that is our standard hashtag.
Well, that's a good idea, because we try to stay ahead of what we're doing for the future. So maybe that's a good idea.
I love what you're doing,
Oh,
speaking in Spanish and what you're saying. I think it's awesome.
well, you know, Rick saw we did one, a couple weeks ago, and when I said that, it was like, yeah, they started clapping. I went, oh. Kind of surprised me, but I was excited about that. So it means something to them, and I like that.
I thought you promised to buy them dinner or something. That's why they're all clapping.
Well, I have to have Bruce with me when we do that.
No, but you're right. No, they
Yeah.
responded in favor.
Hashtag people prosper, hashtag not Boise.
Could be any number of hashtags, right? I like that one. So I don't know, are we needing to identify that today, like hashtag, or is that something we can come back to?
Mayor and
Or
council,
yeah.
it's something that you can come back to, and actually, as you go out on your tours, Mayor, and what comes from the survey, I believe we've asked a couple of keywords that describe Nampa. So as we filter through that data, we'll be able to hear community buy-in on what some of those hashtags could be. What's been shared is great. One that popped in my mind was hashtag Nampa Prosperity. It's just moving that forward. It brings in the big word. But going back to your vision, I think there's some keywords there. Community engagement and comment would be very interesting to see what resonates with citizens of Nampa. And there will be some teenager that is really short and pithy that comes up with a great hashtag, I guarantee it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we all like the independent spirit and unique identity. That hits a home run with me. And in that phrase, that was one that, the one that stood out the most for us. At least for me, it did.
That's hashtag don't tread on me. That's, there you go.
Oh, my God.
Pretty much. So Mayor, do you mind if we transition to the values conversation?
Go for it.
So, Council, the core values that were identified came out of our session as well as feedback from directors. This morning, I had the pleasure of spending about a half an hour with the directors to go through the core values. A big part of the core values piece and why this is being highlighted is because the Code of Ethics that was adopted was earlier this decade, well, actually the first part of 2003, if I'm not incorrect. And as the values are selected and approved by you all as council, that will then get workshopped into a revised code of ethics. So going back to the directors this morning and receiving feedback, they were really great at saying, we have a lot there. What if we distilled it down to 3? And those 3 were integrity, service, and I think it was stewardship. And the way it flowed really well, it was, we are a safe and healthy community where people, let me back up. Through integrity, service, and stewardship, we are a safe and healthy community where people prosper. So the point of that was taking the core values and linking it with that purpose-driven statement that would be easier to remember. So the director's feedback and comment was consider condensing that down even further to 3 perhaps values, core values. That is not reflected in this document that's presented to you now. These are the core values that came out of our time together.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Do the core values here, are they supposed to reflect the city employees in the city or the community?
Mayor and council, it was a mixture. The core values should, based on that code of ethics, be operationalized throughout the city. So as the new city team members are onboarded, they understand what the code of ethics and those values are. From a council and boards and commissions perspective, those same values should carry forth in your roles. So it should be a blend that's seamless, that can be activated in either space, if that makes sense, Councilman.
But you're talking about city elected, city employees, not across the city as a whole.
Not community members, Councilman,
Thank
yes.
you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Could you give me some feedback on, and I'm sorry I missed, since I was at NDC, I missed that discussion this morning, service. Because just a single word of service.
Yes, Mayor. One of the key comments was in lieu of servant leadership, perhaps service. Service is a trickier one because that typically is hard to translate as a core value. What does service mean? You are already in service, so that may be one that you might consider. What's another synonym? What does that represent? What are we trying to get at? But it really was that servant leadership and being upfront. And as we look at the mission, the first part, shall serve citizens by being open and transparent. So shall serve, that was servant leadership as you all had discussed. And so instead of saying servant leadership, one recommendation that was discussed was, what about service? Our core value is service. And being that I have a duality, I can argue both sides and say, well, our core value is service. So service is a mindset that we're here to serve. And we're here for our citizens. We're here for one another. We're here for our community. So I believe that's where that was going. It's instead of servant leadership, service. It's our core value as a city.
Thank you. So as I think about that word, it's a big yes to everything you just said, right? So I just think about the word if we're onboarding, and for the outside, just look at the word service. Did they talk about adding anything behind these? Like, what does integrity mean? It means honesty, trustworthiness, excellence, right? Those other words actually filter through with integrity. Service, you could say, so are we going to put a definition with them, or just was the recommendation definition with them, or just strictly the words?
Mayor, definition was a big part of it, and integrity, for instance, was a combination of taking honesty, trust, and sort of blending those together, because integrity is such a large word. And so condensing that down, and the way that it flowed, an example of leading with the core values into that purpose, was a part of giving it definition. But as we move forward, and especially as identifying strategic initiatives and merging this together, definition will need to be there. And that can come down to behaviors internally. So what does it mean to put forth integrity? How are you behaving? What are we doing? And that circles back to the conversation you all had around customer service, for instance, and being frontline and delivering that value. So absolutely, Mayor, there needs to be definition on what this means to take it deeper.
And I do appreciate, and council is one of the intents with these core values, and our police department is currently doing it, and you're probably aware of this. It's service, it's teamwork, excellence, and integrity. Bobby, is that right? So their evaluations and their, how they function as employees are based on that, is based on those core values. And so the way I look at taking this through the employees is that, and so that's why it's so important that it's, I'm just thinking about how I can actually, the action that goes with it when we evaluate employees and their work and that we're here to serve the community, and that there's a standard by which we operate. And that's through integrity, and like onboarding and evaluating, it's are we operating with openness and transparency? So I would further define those operationally, and ensure that there's honesty, integrity, that we create trusting environments within every department within this city, that we operate, those core values that you have, those bigger words, I'd make sure that they're operationalized for employees, if that makes sense, because that's what I want out of it, is that everything we do comes back around to how we function as individuals within the city and how we exhibit ourselves externally.
Mayor, absolutely. And as a part of performance evaluations, instead of it being about what you've accomplished in results, a lot of the times it's behavior and how are you performing in relation to values. And I've seen numerous amounts of assessments and performance reviews written around the mission, the vision, the purpose, and the values of the organization. That's true operationalizing into culture and transforming the experience.
Thank you.
Mayor-
Thoughts?
Mayor, yes, I was looking these over, and I'm going to put it to you this way. What does the community think about when we are elected? What do they think that we have? We have, number one, most important to them, is trust. Mm-hmm. We have their trust. And the second thing is now they want to know, are we going to portray that trust as leaders? So servant leadership is very important, I believe. Now, the third one, with what the mayor said, I think it's something to show that we are here for them, but I think I'm already saying that with servant leadership, so I'm kind of open to that. What do you think, Shannon? Am I close to there?
Mayor and council, yes. Part of our discussion this morning was, I love the comment that transparency and openness are synonymous. And so how many people actually perform transparent acts by saying, hey, I'm transparent? When it comes to trust, that's such a big word. Combine that with the notion of honesty, you have integrity. And I would say, Councilman, also a part of why you're elected is because your character was integral. You have integrity, and that's the representation. Trust is big. Trust is a really, really big word that still, I think, requires definition. What do you mean by trust? What do you mean by that word? And servant leadership is such a great statement because it's become such a cultural adaptation, and it connotates leadership. It ties in, it has Christian roots and faith-based roots, and there's a lot to that statement of saying that we're here to serve. So that in lieu of service versus servant leadership can be powerful. I think it's pretty tough because you have a lot of great values up there. You do. As you think through the values, think through the top of the house, safe and healthy community where people prosper, the vision and the mission. Some of your words that are in the core values are already in your mission. So this is an opportunity to augment that even further, is a recommendation that I have. And if you're saying in your mission that you are open and transparent, as a citizen, I'm already seeing that that's of importance. What's missing is something I would think of out of what you're saying. What's not said here that might be open for interpretation that you have an opportunity to anchor down in.
Mayor, so Shannon, could you tell me what the top 3 words were that the directors had?
Yes.
The most important to them?
Yes, mayor and council, those were integrity, service, and stewardship.
That's good.
Mayor Kling, you said the police department's 3 words were teamwork, excellence, and what?
I think it's integrity. Integrity,
Integrity.
teamwork, and excellence.
Over the years, I've been blessed to have been able to design several school projects in Nampa, and one of them was Snake River Elementary. And back in '95, branded the outside of the building, and it's still there, because I thought it was, again, an opportunity to present something as a statement that they would maybe take on as they go to school each day. North End, maybe a little rougher side of town, I don't know, but the 3 words were teamwork, effort, and success. And back then it was more of teamwork plus effort, which is kind of what you talked about, Bruce. What is a word for something that works together with teamwork that would equal success? And I'm not trying to state that, I just thought it was interesting that law enforcement would use something similar with teamwork, because that's so integral, along with the effort behind it to create the success that they enjoy as far as in keeping our community safe.
And mayor and council, that I am remiss, that is actually a word that was brought up, teamwork. And if there was another synonym to represent teamwork, how would we talk about that as a core value? And that collaboration, that working together, that unity, that was definitely a suggestion.
And the other thing that came to mind as I was listening to what you're saying is it's intent-driven or purpose-driven. Obviously, there's a purpose-driven life, there's a book out, but, you know, the reality behind it is the intent, and the intent is to try to create a community, or at least foster a community that is safe and welcoming and prosperous, as you've stated. So I think we're on the right track with what we're talking about.
One thing that's kind of neat about teamwork is that it's both internal and external. I mean, you can take that in a lot of different directions, because internally within employees and departments, you need to work together as a team. But externally, we all need to work together as a community, right? And so the city working with community, community working with community, none of us can do it alone. It takes us together. And that's the cool thing about, in some ways, service, then to me, the teamwork is, how do you do that? You're going to do it as a team. But anyway, I have to say, the police have some good words there. They did a good job. So what's the thought? Sandy? Councilman Levi, do you have a preference of any of these?
I'm just digesting it all.
Okay, but if we make some decisions tonight,
I'd say something if I need to.
okay, but no particular opinion of one over another. Councilman Hogabolam?
everything that's been said. I think, there's nothing really I have to add right now.
And then, I know Bruce and Randy and Victor, we've all kind of spoken, but any thoughts? What do you want to, are there 3 words we want to land on, or do we, what do you think?
I'm a follower on this one, Madam Mayor. Another word would be trustworthy, that kind of covers several of those words. I'm a follower. We're heading the right way.
I will say operationally, all those words are going to come in there. To every word we've said, that trustworthy, it's all going to be out there, because I'm going to incorporate all those words that we have, that we identified. They're all going to be operationalized in our performance, in how we're to function. So we'll definitely use them. But do we want to drop down to 3 words? Let's start there.
Mayor, if I may, what I'm hearing, and please, integrity, teamwork, service, stewardship. Integrity, teamwork, service, stewardship. Teamwork seems to be a really important piece of working together. And looking through the vision, the mission, feels like that collaborativeness and working together is an area that could be called out.
Mayor Kling, I see that we need to show the community we're coming together, working together with a positive result. Teamwork is not a positive result. You can work all you want together and have a bad result. So what's the right word I'm trying to find? If there is any other word out there, I don't know. But it gives a connotation that we're working together. We already know that. But is it defining us in a positive way? How do we get there? I'm not sure.
Is it excellence?
Maybe.
Mayor Kling, to respond to that, I see it the opposite.
Yeah.
I think teamwork is very necessary for any successful venture. I've coached a lot. If we didn't play together as a team, play together with cohesion and a purpose in mind, then we weren't going to win the game. We weren't going to be the winners on the day. So it's important that teamwork is a focus, but there needs to be a protocol behind that, and there is. In law
right.
enforcement,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
So I think whether it's teamwork and you're talking about a public-private partnership in how we run the city, I don't know. There's different ways to approach it, but I don't see it as a negative by any means.
I just wanted it out there, Randy. Like I say, it's shows the community that we are working together for a common cause. And so that's what I wanted to figure out. But if there was another word that out there that was better, but I don't see one either. I really don't.
Mayor, council, stewardship jumps out. So if you're soliciting support, I like stewardship if it's defined as people will service, servant leadership. You're saying that's too long, maybe more service, but I want our citizens to know that every employee for the city is exercising good stewardship, and we're exercising good stewardship with their hard-earned tax dollars. And that's a high value of our city. We, at least those of us who are elected up here, I think we all take seriously the need to exercise careful stewardship with the limited, scarce dollars of our taxpayers. So stewardship, we're not a city that's going to be wasting money on things that some other cities may have the benefit to waste money on because they're flush in the dough. So I think, at least for me, I think stewardship's important in that our employees are conscientious that they're being paid ultimately by the taxpayer. And so the service that we render for the taxpayers is, that's a matter of integrity to put in our full effort to make sure that taxpayers are being taken care of. We're not trying to be wasteful. So just want to throw that in.
So if I'm hearing everyone correctly, it goes back to Shannon, what you just communicated, and that was integrity, service, stewardship, and teamwork. That's alphabetically. That's the only reason I did that order, because it follows the alphabet. Those were the 4. Is that correct, what you had said that we've kind of landed on?
Yes, Mayor.
Are we good there?
Say those again. Stewardship, or,
Integrity, service, stewardship, and teamwork. Unless you want servant leadership rather than service.
Excuse me, Mayor. So these 4 values, the integrity, service, and stewardship, and teamwork, is what city employees would be evaluated?
It's how, these are the core values we are adopting as a council, really. So these, but it's how we all operate. So somewhere on the wall, I think it's over there, someone found the Code of Ethics from 2003, I believe. And so the thought is to update that with these core values that we all agree to, and it's how I as mayor am to operate. We as council say these are important to us, this is how we're going to operate. Our boards and commissions will all be asked to sign on and say this is how they operate and our employees operate. We as a city would adopt it as a whole, that these core values are important to us and how we operate. Oh, it's back there by Amy. Thank you, Amy.
And service being defined as?
Well, it goes back to what Shannon was saying, and we could say servant leadership, but it goes, I mean, you could say it one of 2 ways. The way I'll let you explain again how they said it this morning.
Yes, see if I can repeat this twice, Mayor and Council. So service instead of servant leadership, boiling that down into service. So service meaning having a mindset of service to work with our citizens, to work with each other. That's how a lens that we view our roles through. We are here to serve. So service is how we interact with our citizens, interact with each other. How may I serve? How can I help you? How can I make your day better? So a big part of that we'll need to give more definition to, because service and stewardship could run into some trouble there. Well, what's the difference between serving me and being a steward? But stewardship, as I've heard you all speak, is more than just providing a service. It's having integrity tied to how dollars are being spent, time's being spent. The service in itself is how you approach and show up as you're interacting with customers and residents and other community partners.
Follow-up, please. I was just wanting to make sure that was defined, because if we were going to be being measured up, whether it was us as our individual council members, the mayor, and or our city employees, making sure it was something measurable, because not everyone is a servant leader. You can't expect them to be what they are not. And so I just wanted to make sure we weren't setting people up for failure.
Good point.
Great. And Mayor and Council, one way to think of service that I've seen done in terms of measuring is as tangible as how many meetings have you all attended as council? Are you present? How present are you in other community events and whatnot? The service, your role. So it's more tangible and concrete. That's one of the easiest metrics to have. But to your point, Councilwoman, oh my goodness, servant leadership is this big. And not everyone will show up as a servant leader.
Mayor, Council, dropping the leadership component's a little, I wish it could be retained, because going to service, I think we're saying teamwork's important. At the same time, when I think of servant leadership, I think of soft skills, an initiative that a person takes because they're observing something, and it's sort of those skills that we want among people who are paying attention and responsive and taking initiative, where initiative is rewarded and encouraged. And I know that's quite a mouthful, but I think that that's kind of dropped or lost a little bit in dropping the leadership, is because I agree with Councilman Haverfield. Teamwork is important. We work together. At the same time, I think we want the type of people, when they see something and you're the person to act, you step up and act. And that's what servant leadership is. And I think that makes the difference between someone feeling like they're very valued and they're seen, they're heard, they're cared about, to someone who's just kind of following, just doing the least to get by, kind of maybe sometimes. Because even every team has a captain. I think the captain is sort of the person who is the one who exhibits leadership and stuff. So I think as part of our culture as a city, we want to encourage people to be leaders. I just wonder if that's lost if you drop the servant leadership and just go to service, which I think is just a thought.
That's a really good thought. I like that thought because as you think about it, there's positional leadership and there's situational leadership. Positional leadership, I mean, it's sitting right here, right? Situational leadership is anyone can be a leader at any given time, and that comes with it. Like in the city as employees, you want to empower them to feel the ability to step out and provide that service, right? That being a servant leader, and it can happen anytime, anywhere, in any position. And so that comes with inspiration and empowerment. Then anyone can step out and see themselves as a servant leader to those around them at any given time. So it's an interesting, I appreciate your comments on that. All good comments. Isn't this fun? Oh my goodness. You know what's so funny, if you don't mind me saying so? Everyone sitting here has strong opinions, and today it's like, well, what do you think?
Well, Mayor Kling, I have a comment, though. One of the most important things that I do, and I'm going to share this, is that I am an ambassador to our community. I am an ambassador to the mayor and to the council. I'm also an ambassador to the employees. Now, each one of us are ambassadors, and each one of our employees are ambassadors. How they act, how they do their job, how they interact with the community, is ambassadorship. And it shows the teamwork in a positive manner by our attitude, by our work ethics, and by our integrity. So I just want to, I don't want to change that, us being an ambassador, but that's what we really are. That has a whole different meaning, but I just wanted to give you an idea what I thought.
Good comment. Okay, so what's the thought? Because I'm not sure, we've got 10 minutes. It'd be nice to have a 5-minute break, and I'm not sure, do we need to go to focus areas after this, or is this the end?
This is the end, and
This is the
then
end. Okay.
approval as amended with the core values, Mayor.
That we can take forward to the comprehensive master plan meeting on Thursday, and then based on their feedback, what we'll do is take this and do some community town halls and just talk to citizens and about where we're going as we work through the comprehensive plan, and then bring it back with a comp plan in October. So are we there?
Yes.
Yep.
Did we land on service or servant leadership?
I thought we said service. I have service.
Mayor Kling, along with Councilman Hogaboom, I agree with the servant aspect of the term being important, because there's a difference between in leadership of someone that helps push the plow and someone that just cracks the whip and says, or delegates to others. Being able to stand and work alongside, I think, is an important feature in servant leadership, and I don't have a problem at all leaving it the way that it's written, personally.
So with that, it would be integrity, servant leadership, stewardship, and teamwork. Is that correct? Integrity, servant leadership, stewardship, and teamwork.
In any order.
In any order, I'm just alphabetic, yeah, I don't care how, the order at all, but those words.
Sounds good.
Are we okay? And I don't know if this needs to be, I don't think it's an action item, it's the nod that we're there. And
Very
then
good.
I just have a quick question, and that is, our focus areas that we came up with, are we still right on with these? Because that's based on the discussions that our focus areas were safety, infrastructure, and economic opportunity. The reason I say that is these, and I like them personally, I think we're right on where we need to be. And it's interesting that that's where I think we landed as a group. What we will be looking at as we move into the funding plan, just so you know, I'm going to be coming back to these focus areas and saying, is our budget helping us achieve the areas that we said is a focus area? That's how I'll be applying the direction of our focus areas. Ensuring that we have safety, infrastructure. I don't know how I'll would apply that to economic opportunity as much, but at least those first two, I'll be thinking about that from a budgetary standpoint. If it's a high priority, we need to look at how do we actually achieve that. Are we,
Mayor Kling, I think that's a partnership with like the Nampa Development Corporation, because they would be that natural arm to use for economic opportunity.
good point, thank you. You're absolutely, yep. Okay, so are we there? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. I appreciate it. This may seem simple, but this is big because we're framing around this, and it's a wonderful thing to actually have this part where it is.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
We appreciate it. Okay, so because this was a special workshop, I would stand for a motion to adjourn, and then we will re-adjourn at 6 with our regular.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.